Hi, I'm Jess. Welcome to Wildlife Yoga. Today our class is all about connecting with baby and connecting with the inner creative force that you have inside of you. Finding balance with our breath, finding sync with our movement. Hopefully we'll find some comfort and flow through this beautiful pregnancy we're experiencing together. As far as props go, it's very helpful to have a set of blocks. And if you don't have access to blocks, you can use anything from cans to books to bins, whatever you can use to help you sit up a little bit taller. And this class is going to be appropriate for any phase throughout your pregnancy. We'll just adjust accordingly. First, second, or third trimester. Everything will just vary depending on how you're feeling that day and how big belly is at the time. So another thing to have that can be really helpful is a blanket and a pillow, possibly a body pillow as well. Or if you have bolsters, that's great too. So let's get started by sitting in a comfortable seat. We'll start by sitting crisscross applesauce if that is comfortable for you to sit in. If you need a little bit of support, you can grab your block or your pillow and place it underneath your sit bones so that your hips are elevated higher than your knees. This can sometimes help work with the irritation that can come with having the knees bent. This breath exercise, we'll use our hands in Cooper's posture. So cross at the elbow so your hands are facing one another. Interlock the fingers and then curl them up and under. With your fingers interlocked, you can rest your chin on your fingers. And we'll practice taking some big, deep breaths here. We'll start by breathing in through the nose and out gently through the mouth. And continue this breathing here. The purpose of Cooper's posture is what this is called, is to bring the hemispheres of the brain in sync with each other. This also is similar to getting a hug and kind of triggers those same areas of the brain that are awakened when you get a hug. But this one's nice because you can control how long it is and how tight it is as well. I find this one very useful whenever I am feeling anxiety throughout the pregnancy or just through life in general. And word about the breath. We're not doing Ujjayi breath. We're not restricting through the throat here because we're practicing opening through the larynx. The more soft we are through the throat, the more open we will also be through the pelvic floor, which will help prepare us for birthing time. So a good way to do this is to take some big deep breaths in through your nose and maybe just sigh out through your mouth. Making it audible if that feels good. Trying to focus on that relaxation in the throat there. And just remember, if at any time something is becoming uncomfortable, if you need to remove the block or thing that you're sitting on, you can feel free to do that. This is just a guide here for you to explore the movement through your body. Take a couple more breaths in Cooper's posture. And then go ahead and unlock the hands. Shake the hands out, releasing anything that you need to let go of here. As you think about your exhales throughout this class, think about any negative birth stories that you've experienced or heard. We're just going to get rid of those things. And as we breathe in, we're bringing in the positive, bringing in the view that we want to have of this pregnancy, of our labor, of our birth. So we're breathing in the new and the good, and we're releasing the old and the things that aren't serving us. So go ahead and remove the thing that you're sitting on if you were. And sit up nice and tall. We'll take a few shoulder rotations. Breathe in and bring your shoulders up towards your ears, and breathe out as they come down. Breathe in and lift, and exhale, let the shoulders lower. We'll start to extend this movement now, curling through the chest. Exhale. And then inhale and lengthen. Exhale, round. This is like a seated cat-cow, seated pelvic tilting. Inhale and lengthen. Exhale, round. Inhale, lengthen. And sit up nice and tall again and begin to make some circles here. Imagine your pelvis here is tilting like a bowl and you're just massaging all of the areas along your sit bones, even into your hip sockets, getting some good movement here. We can tend to get pretty loose through our hips. We can also feel pretty tense. There's a lot of things changing here. And especially in the beginning, we have so much relaxin. Go ahead and switch directions. Flowing through our body that it can just feel like everything's expanding and not feeling very supported. So as you're moving through here, try to focus on moving into that expansion, but also supporting your hips at the same time. Really nice. Go ahead and come back to seated and bring your fingertips to the mat. Walk your fingertips as wide as they can so that your fingertips are still resting on the mat, and start to take some neck circles here. So I like to focus on, especially when my hands are out to the side, just the side stretching here. So bringing my ear towards my shoulder and then rotating all the way around to the other side. Taking as much time as you need to in between these movements, spending more or less time on the sides, noticing if one side is tighter than the other, and giving yourself room to breathe, to expand. Breathing in the positive stories, the positive images, the positive visualizations that you would like to see for this pregnancy and this birth. And as you exhale, releasing those things that aren't serving you, letting go of other stories, maybe your past stories, knowing that this is a new experience. Go ahead and come all the way back to center. Bring your arms out nice and wide, and then cross your right arm across your chest, hooking on with your left arm, just getting a little bit of openness through the front of that shoulder right here. We tend to spend a lot of time focusing on the lower body and the hips, but we also need to pay attention to our upper body as well. Open up the arms nice and wide, and then we'll stretch to the other side, crossing that left elbow. Stretch across to the other side, stretching your left arm across the body, hooking on with your right arm. Good. Taking those big, deep breaths in through the nose and out through the mouth. Really nice. We just spent a lot of time contracting through the shoulders. Now we'll bring our hands together into Anjali Mudra behind the back here. If this is out of the way for you and too difficult, you can also grab onto your forearms or grab opposite elbows. The goal here is to help us open up through the chest. So bringing your hands behind your back, we'll focus on opening through the chest, hinging forward and looking up towards the sky. Now this is really helpful, especially as our chests maybe start to get a little bit bigger. And if breastfeeding is in your future, when we start to have that extra weight there, we tend to curl down and bring our shoulders down. We'll try to open and release, bringing some good spaciousness through the chest. Really nice. Breathe into the space that you're creating, focusing on breathing in the good and exhaling the maybe not so good. Really, really nice. Let's go ahead and shake those hands out again, releasing anything else, and then we'll make our way onto all fours. Okay, so on all fours here, we want to focus on spreading the fingertips nice and wide to protect the wrists. Carpal tunnel, pregnancy carpal tunnel is a very real thing and can cause issues if we're not spreading our weight through our fingertips. Have your toes tucked under and push into the mat here. Push into the ground to support your body. All right, and with your breath, we will take some gentle pelvic tilting. We're not going all the way into the neck here. We're just going to exhale and tuck our hips under. Inhale, point the tailbone back. And just continue with your own breathing. Finding some good movement here through your pelvis. And as you go along through your pregnancy, you might find that baby is breech at some point, and you might need to help your baby work their way to a more optimal position for birth. This is something that is really helpful to help the baby find movement. And it can also be really relieving for any sort of hip tension. So if you're feeling that later on, or low back tightness, this can help find some relief through there. Now from here, we'll take the left leg back and point the heel down towards the mat. You can stay up here on your hands and knee to support you, and you can walk your hands a bit forward if you need to, if it's feeling a little bit tense on your wrists. And we'll just keep this heel lifted. And if you would like to do a bit more of an inversion, again, if your baby's breech and you need to invert a bit more, you can come down onto your forearms if that feels good. So there's a variety of options here. Right now we're trying to focus on opening through the back of the left leg. And maybe try to find some micro movements through the hips. So just shifting them back and forth. Opening up through the hip socket, maybe feeling some stretching through the outer left leg. And then wherever you're at, if you need to switch positions back and forth, that is totally fine. We will bend the other leg. So straightening the right leg, bringing the right heel down towards the mat. Bring the left knee down to the mat as well. And again, find some gentle movement here, opening through the back of the legs. Continuing that breath. Letting your belly fill up with air and releasing it completely. And we'll just start to pedal through the legs here. If you would like to come all the way into downward facing dog, if that feels like something that's good for you, you're more than welcome to do that. Sometimes it can feel a little bit like it's too much with the inverting here. We have extra blood flowing through our body when we're pregnant. So sometimes even something like downward dog can feel like too much, and that is totally okay. Just taking time to paddle through the legs, taking as long with each leg as you feel like you need. Just remember to spread through those fingertips to keep your wrists supported. Really nice. Now come back onto all fours again, and then we'll take the knees nice and wide and come into your own variation of child's pose. So if your toes are tucked under and you'd like to rest your bum on your heels, you can do that. If you want to bring your tops of your feet down and you have space, just keep your knees nice and wide depending on how far along you are in the pregnancy to allow belly to come all the way down. Then rest your forehead on the mat. And if that feels like too much, you can also just keep the hips lifted and come down just slightly, as long as inversions aren't bothering you at this point. Just take a moment to find some rest. Find some space and some breath. And then we'll come back onto all fours. And we'll start with some spinal balancing. So with the left leg back, bring the toes so that they're barely resting on the mat. And we'll just practice lifting the heel just slightly, lowering and lifting. And to match the movement with the breath here, we'll exhale as we lift, inhale as we lower. Now, the reason why we are exhaling as we lift the leg is we're practicing breathing out as we exert effort. So this is like what we will do in labor exhale during the pushing portion. And keep that leg lifted this last time, and take some gentle pulses here, lifting the heel off of the ground, or trying to work through stabilizing the hips. And you might be feeling it a lot in your right hip, and that's okay. Try to keep lifted here, and then we'll swing that leg out to the side, bringing the edge of the left foot all the way down to the ground. And we'll take some hip circles with the legs out to the side. So with the leg out to the side, really rotate as much as you can. If you need to adjust the stance of the right leg, like for example, if you need to bring your right knee out a little bit, make some room for belly. Find some movement here through the hips, exaggerating it as much as you need to. Take this time to intuitively flow, intuitively find movement that feels good for your body right now. Really nice. Go ahead and come back here. Keep the left leg out to the side. Take a gentle crunch over to the side, like you're looking back behind that left leg. Maybe getting a little bit of stretch through the back of the left leg and some openness through the right side body. Continuing your breath. And then bring the torso back to center. We'll keep the left hand planted, lift the right arm up overhead, and thread it underneath your left arm so that your hand is pointed at the same direction that your foot is going. So here we're focusing on opening through the back of the shoulder blade. So push into the ground as much as you need to open through here. If you're feeling that reversal of blood flow already, you can lower the hips down a little bit if you have some space, or just come up a little bit higher. But here we're focusing on keeping open through the back of the shoulder blades. And if you want to, you can even lift your arm up overhead to get a little bit more of a spinal twist. If you can't tell, my breath is feeling pretty restricted here because everything is floating forward and constricting my lungs. So that's another thing to be aware of when we're inverting. Now let's gently come back up. Go ahead and bring that left leg all the way back. And we'll shake it out a little bit. Shake out the legs. Shake out both of them. Good. Now we'll switch over to the other side. This time we'll extend the right leg back. Check in with your hands here. And remember, we'll exhale as we lift that right leg up. And inhale, lower it down. Try to keep your breaths audible and soft. Good. Focusing your attention on this movement here, maybe sending some love over to your hips because this can be pretty intense. Just know that you are doing something kind for your hips here as you're helping them stabilize. And take one more lift up. And keep that right leg lifted as you pulse your leg up and to the sky, lifting up through that left hip. And then we'll swing that right leg over to the side, putting the edge of the right foot down on the mat here. I'm just scooting over so I can create a bit of space. And then find some circling through the hips again. Making sure to go in both directions. Remember to move as intuitively as you can. This is your time to find space for your body and your baby. And maybe you even think about this as an opportunity to take your baby for a little ride. Like you're rocking your baby here. They're swirling around. No matter how big or small your belly or your baby are, they're taking a little ride right now. Go ahead and come back to a center place. We'll take a C curl here. So looking back behind that right leg, Maybe feeling a bit of openness through the outside edge of the right leg and some openness through the left side body. And then come back to center. Lift that left arm up overhead this time. And then exhale, thread it underneath. Maybe lifting that right arm up overhead, focusing on the openness between the shoulder blades. Keeping your breath nice and long. Knowing it's okay if your breath is feeling a bit contracted here, especially if your belly is a bit bigger. Everything's kind of pushing up against the base of those lungs, contracting that diaphragm. Really nice. And let's come all the way back up. This time, coming down into a child's pose just for a breath here. Relaxing the arms, relaxing the legs. And then from here, we'll gently rise up, grab onto your blocks or your supports that you have. And this will change. The height that you need to have your blocks will depend on how you're feeling and how big your belly is as well. Okay, so we'll come up high onto our blocks here, and just with as many little steps as you need to, we'll take the left leg forward, tuck the right toes under. Remember, we're pushing into the ground with those right toes so that we can find some stability. And in this low lunge, we'll practice hinging back and forth. So exhale, and we'll straighten out the leg as much as we can. And then inhale, coming forward a little bit. This might feel good on the hips. If it's not feeling very good, try to think about isometrically drawing the knees together. So not letting them splay out nice and wide and not necessarily moving them together, but just drawing the hips together a little bit. So just moving back and forth, and it's okay too if your front leg doesn't straighten all the way. We want to focus on keeping the spine nice and long here with the hips pointed back. Really nice. And let's go ahead and come down onto the knees, both knees. Bring your hands to your low back and just gently look up towards the sky. Your ability to stretch back will change as time goes on. Try not to go too far. We're focusing on opening through the front of the legs and maybe opening through the chest a little bit, but we're not trying to excessively stretch the belly. And then go ahead and come back onto your blocks, and we'll take the other leg forward this time. And move back and forth again between our half split and our low lunge, just trying to keep the legs engaged, pushing those left toes into the mat. And now this time we will make our way gently to standing. So however you need to get there, take any tiny steps you need to, and keep those blocks handy nearby. Go ahead and stand all the way up, maybe moving a little bit slowly since we're moving to standing. And we'll take the feet about as wide as the mat here. So from the front, I'll just look kind of like this. And we'll bend down, keeping the spine nice and long. Rest the hands on the tops of the thighs, okay? So with the hips pointed back, we want to avoid curling under to come down onto the knees. We want to try to keep the spine nice and long. So also try not to lock out through the elbows here. So this is our modified chair pose. And as you inhale, point the tailbone back. Exhale, tuck the tailbone under. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale, curl under. And just continue this with your breath. It's just a variation of the pelvic tilting we were just doing. Nice. And we'll slowly make our way all the way to standing. And step closer to the top of your mat, making some space. And we'll step the legs nice and wide. So finding goddess pose here, pointing the toes out, bending through the knees. We'll work with our inhales and exhales. So we'll inhale and bend the knees. Exhale, straighten and lift the arms up high. Finding some strength here. And try to think about hugging the heels in together while you're doing this, not just letting the knees spread really wide, but staying really active through the legs here. Take about 2 more. And remembering we're inhaling the good and exhaling out the bad. And I kind of reversed my breathing pattern here. If that happens to you, that is totally fine. Just find a breath pattern that works well. And then come all the way up to standing. Go ahead and point those toes inwards. Hold on to the hands and stretch over to one side. And then to the other side. And grab onto your blocks here. We'll come all the way down to a seated position, taking however much time you need to get there. Go ahead and take your block and find a comfortable sitting position here. So you can sit with your knees down, or you can come into a low malasana squat. So this sometimes will feel good on hemorrhoids as well. And if you need a little bit of extra cushion, you can put a blanket on top of your block. But here we're focusing on some pelvic floor breath work. And to do this, we're going to keep our knees kind of together and open rather than keeping our knees really wide. So this is optimal birthing position here because our pelvic floor is nice and open. When our knees are wide, we're kind of compressing the back end of our pelvic floor. We want to try to keep that open. All right, so find a comfortable way to sit, either in hero pose or malasana variation. And begin to take some big deep breaths. We'll draw our attention to our pelvic floor. Now, as we think about our pelvic floor at the very, very base of our pelvis, our diaphragm here is right underneath our lungs, and our pelvic floor is all the way down here. And as we inhale, our diaphragm is actually lowering to make room for our lungs to expand, and our pelvic floor follows the same direction. As we exhale, the lungs compress and the pelvic floor lifts as well as the diaphragm lifting. So we're mirroring that movement here. We inhale, our diaphragm comes down, our pelvic floor softens, maybe letting those muscles touch the thing that you're sitting on. And then exhale, the diaphragm lifts, and so does the pelvic floor, lifting those things up off of the thing that you're sitting on. So continuing with that breath, as you inhale, the diaphragm lowers, and so does the pelvic floor. As you exhale, the diaphragm lifts, and the pelvic floor lifts as well. Now, oftentimes when we are working on pelvic floor work, we're only doing the constriction part, the exhale part where everything's lifting, but it's also really important to practice the release. And a lot of people we're finding that people are holding too much tension there, which, as you can imagine, can become an issue during childbirth. We want to be able to tense and relax and work on that muscle tone. So anytime you find yourself working on your pelvic floor exercises, focus on moving with the inhales and the exhales. This will help with healing after birth as well and throughout the rest of our lives, because our pelvic floor is constantly shifting and changing. And if we can work on that tone, both up and down, everything will hopefully be nice and working together well. Now go ahead and release where you are. We'll remove the block from where we're sitting and transition all the way onto the ground. Go ahead and bring your right leg into the inside of your left leg. Extend your left leg out to the side. Now, the angle of your leg will change depending on how far along you are in your pregnancy. So if you're still early on and you have room, go ahead and face the left leg forward in front of you. If you need a bit more room, go ahead and slide it out to the side. We'll inhale and lengthen through the spine. You can use a block if you would like. And then exhale, hinge forward, trying to keep those left toes pointed up towards the ceiling. I like to use my blocks to help support me a little bit more. You totally don't have to use them. You can keep your hands on the ground, and you can walk your hands forward. Do whatever you feel like your body needs here. Just focus on that opening through the left leg. Keeping your breath nice and soft. Taking just a couple more breaths here. Remembering to inhale the good, inhale the positive birth stories, the positive visualizations, and then exhale out the things that you do not want to keep with you. And then walk the hands all the way up. We will make our way over to the other side. Go ahead and bring that left leg in towards the inside of the right thigh. Extend that right leg out. Remember, you can bring your right foot in towards the middle if you're a bit earlier. But keep that spine nice and long. And then walk the hands forward or rest onto the block in front of you. Just try to keep those right toes flexed and pointed towards the ceiling. Inhale and bring expansion and openness to new paradigms, new positive perspectives. And then exhale, release the things that aren't serving you. And gently make your way back to a comfortable seat. And here we have a few different options. We'll get ready for Shavasana. And with this, you can use a block and have it stacked this way. So one is tall and the other one is short. And I have this pillow right here. This is just a body pillow that I am going to drape on across the top. And if you have a bolster, this is also a really great way to do this. And we want to avoid laying on the back. If you're early on in your pregnancy and you can lay comfortably on your back, that is totally fine. But especially as time moves on, I would say second, third trimester, try to avoid laying on your back as much as you can so you're not compressing your big vein that goes up through your back, and the weight of the uterus and the baby doesn't compress that. So doing this will help provide room for reclining, but also allow for some comfortable relaxation, and it doesn't compress that inferior vena cava like it does if we were laying flat out. And so if you're doing this, you can have your soles of your feet together if you'd like to work on some more hip opening, or you can straighten out your legs with your toes pointed up towards the ceiling. Making some extra room if you need to, maybe wiggling out the hips a bit. And if you'd like to focus on some chest opening, just bring your arms out a bit wider as well. And while you recline here, allow your eyes to gently close. We'll work our way through relaxing the body, starting with the crown of the head. Relaxing any tension you're holding in your forehead and your eyebrows. Let your eyes become heavy. Let your tongue gently rest in your mouth with your teeth slightly separated from each other. Relax the jaw and the throat. Bring some peace and relaxation into the upper chest and the shoulders. Finding room through the upper back as well. Allowing that relaxation to flow all the way down from the biceps to the triceps, down to the elbows, the forearms, the palms of the hands and the fingers. Bring your awareness to your belly and around your back. So if you had a gentle, warm scarf wrapped around your stomach, embracing this beautiful creative space that is happening inside of you right now. Bring your awareness to your hips, the front, the back, and the sides. Allow them to relax. Relax the thighs and the hamstrings, the knees, the shins, and the calves. Finally, relaxing the ankles and the feet. And take a moment to relax your whole body, expressing appreciation for the intuition that it carries, the natural ability it has to change and transform, to carry this life growing inside of you. Feel free to stay here as long as you would like. And when you're ready, bring your left hand to your chest and your right hand to your belly. And just honor this connection that you have with this life right now. Taking some big deep breaths, feeling your belly expand. Finding some good connection between you and this other being inside of you. And then slowly make your way onto your side. So if you are on your blocks, go ahead and just make your way onto your side as much as you can. We'll focus here on rising up to sitting, using the arms rather than crunching up to a seated position. So when we use our arms to sit up, it helps preserve the integrity of our abdominal muscles as they're changing and expanding. And take a moment, maybe switch hands here. Bring your right hand to your heart and your left hand to your belly. And send some love. Every exhale. Go ahead and bring your hands together in heart center. We'll take a Om together. Try to make it as audible as you can, focusing on remember to focus on relaxing through your throat and opening and softening there. Find your voice in these Oms. So take a deep breath in and exhale out your mouth. Inhale deeply to prepare. Thank you so much for practicing with me today. I wish you all the best for your body and your baby, and I will see you next time.